Every day we wear a mask, and that mask is Fragments of Silicon.
All right. Partner Dust here. If we sound different, it's because, well, this is our first time using our Discord to power the show's audio.
Mm-hmm.
And Discord and Skype have, two sets of, sound balances. Like,
I think it's more audio algorithms, but yes.
Point is, we've been having to adjust things. Because we were going to have to do that anyway. We ran into a situation where we had to use Discord, which, no time like the present to fully experiment. I mean, we did do the testing like we did, and
I take responsibility for this. I couldn't get my Skype life in order.
It's fine. It's fine. I mean, there are people who absolutely loathe using Skype. So anyway, welcome to another installment of Fragments of Silicon. I'm your host, Adam. Joining me, as always, the regular crew. Let's get to the news. Well, once again, we turn to Pettyfan because, his life is just a regular telenova of wonders.
Honestly, a lot of this stuff I'm not sure if I can even talk about because literal lawyering up, so...
Right.
Yeah, last thing I need is to say something on air that would screw up my case. So, yeah.
As you know the rule. As always, check your NDAs.
Yep.
Mm-hmm.
As far as gaming stuff, we're still hammering away at raids in Final Fantasy XIV after a bit of a break because between Ogre getting sick and two of our team members went off to Alaska, kind of hard to get people together.
I was wondering why there were less broadcasting occasions.
Yeah.
God, I don't think anyone else here has spoken to Ogre in months.
Yeah, he's still around and doing things.
I'm just saying, he's kind of out of the circle ever since. So,
and as far as as far as other gaming stuff, I finally, after renting the Digimon Hacker Memory game, I finally decided to buy it through GameFly because it was on sale. So, hooray, that is now mine forever.
Well, the entire game's on the disc, right?
Yep.
Then yeah. Because that is a thing in modern gaming.
Yeah.
Right?
I think there were some minor pre-order bonuses or DLC, but nothing super.
But I think it was like Tai and Matt's Agumon and Gabumon, but
they were costumes for Agumon and Gabumon, and I think a Cyber Sleuth 1 outfit for the protagonist.
And it's like, meh, they don't count towards completion or getting the Platinum Trophy, so whatever.
Right.
And I still want to try and maybe look at Critical Mode in Kingdom Hearts 3, because that came out today. But I've also been dealing with a bit of a migraine, so that's probably not the best time to try that out.
Right.
And besides, I'm going to have a week or two on the couch to deal with that anyway.
Yeah.
Still not looking forward to that. We're working on getting money together to get what's called a CPM, or continuous passive motion machine, because the doctor says I'm going to need that for 6 weeks after surgery to kind of keep my knee moving. Apparently it's not covered by Medicaid, and they want like $500 for it, so that's fun.
Right.
And I think that's it. Just kind of getting the house ready for my surgery and, doing stuff in my free time.
All right then. Worth noting, we're probably going to be off the last week of May.
Yep.
It's not just because Petty Fan's going away. It's also we got to get the other guys here trained, especially with the specter of E3 floating close at hand at that point in time.
Yeah.
So,
Theoretically, unless I'm loopy on pain medicine, I should be back the next week, but it depends how mobile I am on crutches.
yeah. Anyway, we'll deal with that in about a month's time. So, Galix, you're next.
Not too much going on around here. My dad's on a small trip with one of my uncles for about half of this week, so that's it's going to be interesting. It's always a little bit interesting when one of the parents isn't around for a while, but I don't think there are going to be any significant problems with it. Not looking forward to next week. By the time we have show next week, I will be on my third day thankfully, of 3 of getting to work like 2 hours earlier than usual because everyone else that works in the payroll part of our work is either going to be on a honeymoon or away at a conference for 2 of those days, and then the third day it's going to be mad catch-up because while I will be able to do some of it without them there will be stuff that I will not be able to do, so that should be interesting.
Right.
Not much going on in games for me right now. Team Tortoise lost the Splatfest. Hare's won on the rematch, apparently. Yeah, that's about it.
All right. Twilight, your go.
All right. Well, this past weekend, my cousin came in to visit for Easter and to also visit a family member who's fairly ill. Besides the family member part, the visit was nice and fairly enjoyable after what happened a few months ago. Really hasn't been much else been going on gaming wise. I've been playing the game I'm doing for this Sunday, and that'll be about it.
All right, I guess it's my go.
Yep.
Let's see. Well, my Xbox One controller, not technically broke, but it broke. I'm not sure how many here are familiar with the concept of drift, but my Xbox One controller got it. I mean, very shortly, that's when your default position moves.
Sometimes there are ways to fix that.
Yeah. Apparently, to fix it on an Xbox One controller involves taking it apart and soldering. I'm like, it's going to be just easier and cheaper to get a new one.
It's one of those, if I was in the same time zone or whatever, I might be able to fix it for you, but yeah.
Well, and there are also different kinds of errors for that. Like, one thing, you can sometimes re-zero it if it's one particular kind of problem, but this probably isn't that.
No. It's pushing up on the y-axis. And it's making games unplayable because, it thinks the default position is up. And I can't calibrate that out. So
I think you might be able to have an Xbox One, but it would be cheaper to get just another controller than buy yourself an Xbox One.
I use it for the PC. Like,
Yeah.
I don't have an Xbox One. I have a PC, but I use the Xbox One controller.
Yeah.
I mean, right now I'm using my backup Xbox 360 controller until, I can get a new one, which will be May, because Xbox One controllers, even the basic ones, are like $50. It's like, gonna have to, wait until a better monetary position, which isn't too bad. But in the meantime, the Xbox 360 controller serves well enough. It's just, oh god, I've forgotten how bad the D-pad is. Anyway, in other news, not much else is going on here. Yeah, I guess that's about it as far as my news goes, and indeed the news in general. So, merrily, we shall roll along to the interview portion of the broadcast, and this week we've got Natalie Zina Walschots of Stitch Media with us.
Yes, that is me. Hello.
Yes, hello. How are you doing tonight?
Doing very well, thank you.
That's good to know. Anyway, how we'd like to start things off is by getting to know the people or person behind the game studio and whatnot. And we like to start by asking what got you interested in video games, both on a personal and a professional level.
Oh man, I've played video games since I was a little kid. I had both a regular and Super Nintendo at home when I was small, which probably indicates how extremely old I am. Actually, I'm ancient.
Oh.
Games when I was a kid, when I was a teenager, it was, games were always an incredibly important part of how I made friends and spent time with my friends and spent time with my partners. And, I spent a great deal of time, playing Lunar Silver Star Story with, people who are important to me, and sort of drifted apart maybe or from video games a bit when I went to university and spent more time with tabletop RPGs. I did a lot more like D&D and Vampire the Masquerade during that part of my life. And then kind of during my master's ended up, sort of rekindling that. I'm coming back to it. And I never really, to be perfectly honest, never considered having a career in games at all until about 2013. There's an organization in the city that I live in. I'm from Toronto, Canada, called Dames Making Games, that runs a lot of extraordinary workshops and does a lot of they do a lot of community outreach. They run a lot of classes. They're an amazing organization, and they were running a 6-week make your first game incubator over the summer in 2013. I'm like, I can do that. That sounds like a thing I would like to do. It was extraordinarily fun, and I made a totally garbage game in which you are a ghost trying to communicate with people in a house by haunting them. It was very bad. And then I made other games that were hopefully less bad over time, mostly weird little body horror things, more recently weird VR horror things, and a few years ago, I started actually getting paid to do that. Turns out there's a small market for weird, strange things in games. It ended up the first work I got in games was doing some branching narrative work, like some narrative design work and some dialogue tree kind of work, and I did that for a while. I also do community management and digital strategy, so I started doing that for some games, and then I've been with Stitch Media since the fall of 2017. And that's me. So that's the very short and dirty version of my video game story.
Good to know. Now, Stitch Media, from what I'm looking at here, it's more than just a games company. It's like a mixed media outfit.
Yeah, so we do a bunch of stuff. We build games and lots of things that aren't games. So we do take on client work. So we often like work with IPs, like intellectual properties that aren't ours. So we'll do like, you know, active experiences or you know, or sometimes just websites or sometimes games for stories, whether that's like movies or books or something like that, for stories that aren't ours. But sometimes we make games like Terrarium or our earlier original IP, Rival Books of Aster, that are completely original as well. But we also make VR experiences. We make ARGs, which are alternate reality games. You know, which sort of combine digital with real world elements. We're very interested in immersive experiences. Things that sort of like blur the boundaries of that sort of create that wonderful moment of surprise of like, oh my goodness, this feels real. This feels like I'm in the middle of a story, actually. So we're we do a lot of work that tries to create those little moments of surprise. So it's not just a game studio. It's we're definitely a company that makes does a lot of different kinds of storytelling. But with a lot of new technology. Yeah.
From what I see on your website, it's a lot of the licensed stuff is Canadian shows. Like White Pine Pictures, The Border. Like, anyway, now Rival Book of Aster. This is a digital collectible card game for the iOS. Is this your first original game?
That was our first original IP, yeah. So it was it's a collectible card deck building game that is based on actual medieval grimoires and spell books. So there are a few people at our studio who really, really love deck builders like Magic and Hearthstone, and that game is very much a sort of like love letter to those kinds of games, and is very much a game with like a lot of lore and a lot of deep storytelling, and you can really see a lot of that kind of like deep passion for those kinds of story driven deck builders in there.
That sounds like actually quite the undertaking if you think about it.
Yeah, it was an absolutely massive undertaking, especially from like a writing and a storytelling perspective. Absolutely.
And how many cards are in it?
There are 4 different. So there's 4 different kind of like houses or suites of cards. There are, oh my goodness, I believe there are like a total of 140 completely original cards, and each one has a like different story component attached to it, like for all the story that you see attached to every single card also has like a backstory, and every card is in some way connected to the other ones. So when the cards sort of like react to each other, in the sense that like if 2 cards stories are connected to each other, or that they respond to each other in that kind of way.
That's certainly a unique motif for a card game.
Yeah, it's very spellbooky, and again, it feels very much like again the idea behind it was sort of these like the books themselves are battling each other. Like these are like it's less about the spellcaster and more about the books, the Rival Books of Aster. So it feels very much like these pages are coming to life and and dueling in front of you.
Now, is this a free-to-play card game fair, or is it like something like Artifact?
It is free to play. However, for you can like there is one very small flat fee for which you can buy outright. So it's not sort of like a grind to collect everything.
And that's as many copies as you need, or you can only use one, or?
Yeah, it's as many copies as you need. Yeah, exactly.
Like, and I suppose another question is, like, could this game function as an actual card game?
Yes, absolutely. We have paper. Like we built it on paper first. There was a paper prototype before it was a completed digital game, and there are there are very few. Just sort of, we only have them in-house paper printed versions of them. It does work completely as a functional card game.
Neat. Like, anyway, so moving on to the main event here. Game that we have being shown on screen here is Terrarium, or it's kind of hard to get the pun across if you say it fast. It's Terrarium, like as in terror, fear.
A terrarium.
Yeah, there we go.
It takes a while. I'm only good at it because I've been saying it nonstop for literally a couple years now.
Anyway, so for the uninitiated, what is this game exactly?
So Terrarium is a part puzzle, part maker game starring a intergalactic space grandma. She's trying to win a gardening competition of sorts. She has an army of really cute, not terribly smart creatures called Mugu who do her bidding. This is sort of her trump card, the way that she's going to get a one-up on the competition and create the most terrifying gardens in the galaxy, or terrariums in the galaxy, hence terrarium. See what's happening there. So the Mugu come in 4 varieties. There's gooey, gassy, spicy, and thick. They each have different powers and abilities, and they help her to navigate these increasingly hostile garden environments as she, seeks to capture these prime specimens that will ultimately help her make these increasingly terrifying gardens, and ultimately carry her to gardening victory. So what this means within the game is that there are 24 levels of increasing difficulty, each that contain various environmental puzzles that you use the Mugu and their abilities to solve. This might be floating over lava. This might be figuring out which parts of the environment to break or light on fire. This might involve, weighted platforms or navigating spikes. It might mean running from monsters or, plants that shoot terrible projectiles at you. Within the environments themselves, with the goal always of sort of reaching an ending of capturing the prime specimen at the end. The levels, though, really, the point of them is to introduce you to some core mechanic or element of the game. So it shows you some kind of puzzle. So you learn the mechanic, you master the mechanic, and by the time you can beat that puzzle, you've kind of figured it out. So by the time you've beaten the 24 levels, and then go into maker mode, you should have some kind of an idea of the sorts of puzzles that you can build, because we really think that maker mode is where the game opens up, because you have access to 4 level templates, over 100 fully customizable assets, which include, that means the plants, the rocks, the lakes, the lava pits. All of them are scalable, rotatable. You can place them in space. A lot of them have other elements that you can customize, like the rate of fire, or their speed, their ferocity. The monsters even have mappable paths that you can place them on, sort of a rudimentary AI system. And so once you build these levels, which can be incredibly dense and complex, you can save them, upload them to Steam Workshop, and share them as well. So there's, as much as it is a puzzle game, it is very much a level creation and sharing game as well.
And what sorts of levels have been uploaded so far?
We're we've had really fascinating stuff like happen so far. There's basically two kinds of levels that we're seeing appear so far. I think of them as they're either like death traps or gardens are the two things that we're getting. So we're either getting these sort of like Rube Goldberg-esque, like, of murder machine things that are just basically like, what can kill you as fast and horribly as possible, right? These kind of like hilarious like combinations of like what will murder you, like, as ridiculously and quickly as possible, like what will blow you up the fastest, what will eat you the fastest, what will light you on fire the quickest, biggest splatter effect the second you load into the game. Or people create these incredibly like beautiful spaces where they have very meticulously placed rocks and trees and flowers and foliage and creatures, and created this this sort of like lovely garden that feels much more like you're kind of just supposed to like wander around and admire it. And you certainly can like interact with it, and like the flammable things are still flammable, and the like breakable walls can still be broken down, and you can still interact with it the way that those elements are interactable. But there's very much a sort of feeling of like admire this more than anything else. So it really seems like so far the levels that we've seen are sort of split off into one of those two categories.
And I suppose another question I have is, how strong is your moderation?
For the levels right now, like honestly, we're not denying anybody any level, like in terms of quality, like just upload them, like that's fine. We are, however, implementing a rating system, which is we're implementing a few things. So first of all, we don't have a ton right now, so we do kind of want everybody who wants to contribute to have the opportunity to contribute. However, we are building in the sort of opportunity for people to sort of give like a thumbs up to, like, hey, I super like this one, like yay quality. So there's sort of a like thumbs up folks like, so that sort of like the cream rises to the top. And we have some I don't want to make promises that we can't keep, of course, but as we levels continue to be created, we're going to have to look at that approach and revisit it at some point. But for now, like, we really do want people to have the opportunity to build and share whatever they want to, and to sort of let that community kind of like build and moderate itself a little bit. Now there are, which is not to say that we are an unmoderated community, quite the opposite. We have we do have a Discord channel, which we're very active in, and which is very closely sort of kept and moderated, which as is our Steam page. It's something that we're like very carefully watching over, and very our community is something that we're cultivating very carefully. But when it comes to like, oh, we think this is a good level versus we think this is a bad level, that's not something we're terribly interested in, like the get-go. Like, really, we want to see what people are going to make and kind of give especially our very early level builders, the opportunity to kind of be as creative as they want in that space without anything on them at this early phase.
I suppose I should define further. It's more how do you avoid obscene level designs, let's call them?
Oh, I see. Like, how do you prevent someone from putting the rocks down in an unseemly shape? I see. Right. Well, we do look at them, and there are enough of them that we can look at them all carefully, and to a certain extent, where we are willing to let some, sort of like PG-13-esque humor.
Mm-hmm.
Sure, fine. However, a certain level of anatomical realism is perhaps not appropriate for some of our younger players to stumble across.
Yes.
We would, if we happen to come across that, despite our sort of fostering creativity, we would not be able to remain.
But you don't have like extremely sophisticated algorithms to automatically detect.
Do not have a Wang filter presently in place at this time. No, the Wang AI has not yet.
It would be a lot easier in 2D, but I recall Nintendo having filters on some of their things.
They may have them.
No, I'm sure.
And no, they didn't work, but they tried.
Yeah,
I'm sure that they did.
I've seen the Smash Brothers levels. Like,
God, they tried.
Yes,
they
did. Okay, let's get it all out of our systems. All right. Anyway, right. So the game is.
Okay, I'm sorry. I know we're trying to move on from this, but like my partner just like is frantically like waving at me. I for sure thought he had just injured himself, and he like wrote a note that said "artificial Wang intelligence." So I just to read that aloud. I couldn't let that. Okay, we're done. We can move on now. I'm sorry.
Meanwhile, as something's being furiously added into the game as we speak.
Yes.
I'm gonna make I'm opening a ticket right now.
Well, you gotta watch the TTT. Time to cock. No, seriously, that's a term for it.
Oh
anyway,
my god. Anywho,
this is I assure you, this is a professional show, and we are professional people.
Yeah, I definitely.
Cue the massive air quotes on that one, my friend.
Anyway, so the game is in early access. How long has it been in early access, and how much time is it going to spend in early access?
I have a very solid answer for one of these, and a not solid answer for the other. So we moved into early access on March 18th in the middle of GDC, which is very exciting for us. So very not long at all. We've just been there a few weeks. On long we're planning to stay in early access. We do not know exactly what the future holds for us. We really want to. I mean, the short answer is like as long as we need to. We what and do with the assets we've created. Like we've been playing with these levels for months and months and months. We've been looking at these assets for a very long time. We know the kind of levels that we build with them to put together. What is critical to us now is seeing what other people do with that and how our community responds, and what the sort of creative influx we get now looks like. And we really feel that our next moves are going to be influenced profoundly by that feedback. Like we really want to see like what people are doing with the game and how they are playing it, and like let that guide us instead of trying to like force people to play the game the way that we think they should, if that makes any sense. So we really want to take our cues from our player base, and because of that we also don't want to rush anything. We don't want to, so we don't want to put like a hard limit on like, okay, we're only going to spend like X number of months in early access, and then we like are definitely going to ship on X day. Because we don't want to rush that process. We want to be able to kind of like let people like, we want to let the game have the time in early access that it needs. Which is a very fancy way of saying we don't know yet. But we're willing to, we want to give it the time that it needs to spend there.
Fair enough. And what game engine is this being built in? Unity, Unreal?
Yeah, it's a Unity game. Yeah.
And has that been easy to work with so far?
Yeah, Unity has been great. It's definitely been. We're very happy with our engine choice for sure.
That's good to hear. Is this game being built for Windows only, or are there going to be Mac and Linux?
No, it's playable right now for both Mac and PC. It's already available for both.
Oh, good. And are there any plans to take this game to any other platforms, like when it's out of early access?
I personally feel like it would work great as a console game. We don't have any solid plans, certainly none that I can speak firmly on. But I think it looks and plays great as a console game, particularly the like narrative and puzzle elements of it. I think that works super, super well. So yeah, we'd love to see it on a console. Those are definitely dreams of ours, but we do not have we don't know which one it would be at this particular moment in time. We don't have a solid plan. For sure.
Right. Right. I think that's all of my questions. I'll see if my colleagues have any others to add to the mix.
Sure.
I think I asked most of mine when they popped up.
Yeah, I think I'm good.
I believe
That's
I'm good as
interesting,
well. Yeah, it's interesting sounding.
All right, then. Natalie, it was wonderful having you on the program.
Thank you so much for having me. This is a blast.
No problem. Anyway, the game is Terrarium. It is available on Steam for PC and Mac for $9.99. One last question. Is that price going to be fixed, or is it going to change when it gets into a release state?
That is not something I can comment on at this time. That is, however, the early access price.
Okay, then. Be sure to pick it up today. Pettyfen, play us to the next segment. All right, welcome to the topic of discussion. This week we are talking about Mortal Kombat because there is a new Mortal Kombat game out.
Yes, there is.
I'm resisting my urge to do the theme song.
Please do. But yeah, Mortal Kombat 11 just released yesterday, if I'm being correct here.
Mhm.
Like-
Yeah, it was.
and on many accounts it probably shouldn't have released.
Well,
Oh no!
Well-
The inherent game design is apparently not anything that anyone's talking about because they can't get past the microtransaction enabling friggin' internal progress system.
Mortal Kombat 11 has a lot of the typical problems of the AAA industry, a lot of the problems with the modern fighting game scene. You know, grindy system, loot boxes, shit. I'm not sure if this one has loot boxes, but it has a shitload of DLC. It's a typical Warner Brothers game. Apparently outside of that, this is actually the really good Mortal Kombat game, or so I've heard. I have no plans to buy it right now because grind, just
Mm-hmm.
It's either grind or spend a crap ton of money. The biggest problem I heard is that the unlocks are all completely random, and it's not just when you unlock a new skin, it's a completely random skin, or when you unlock a new music, it's completely random music. It's when you unlock a new thing, it could be a completely random skin, a completely random piece of music, a completely random emote.
that's loot boxes.
Mm-hmm.
And people wonder why we hate them.
Yep. But like I said, this is not something that's really just confined to Mortal Kombat 11. Hell, I don't think this is the first Mortal Kombat game to do this. If I'm recalling correctly, Mortal Kombat 10 had a lot of the same problem. That being said, there are other problems with the game.
Mortal Kombat 10 was the one where you could pay for fatalities, right?
You could pay for fatalities to be one button.
I think that was Mortal Kombat 10. Actually, I honestly don't remember. But the point of the matter is, Mortal Kombat has a lot of problems that are inherent with a lot of the AAA set. Outside of that, apparently Mortal Kombat 11 is a really great game. Even on the Switch. The Switch version has been getting a lot of praise for being a pretty good interpretation of Mortal Kombat. And if you've played some of the previous Mortal Kombat installments on a portable device, you'll know how hard that is.
Or flashbacks to Mortal Kombat Game Boy.
Yeah. No, seriously, that's one of the worst games ever. And I mean just ever. And it's not the only really, really horrible Mortal Kombat portable game. God, I think Mortal Kombat for the DS was really bad, or Mortal Kombat 3 Ultimate for the GBA. Just terrible Mortal Kombat after terrible Mortal Kombat. Even Mortal Kombat on the Vita was not particularly good. But other problems with Mortal Kombat 11, Ronda Rousey. Ronda Rousey is, in addition to being a terrible person, not a good voice actress.
I was going to say, is she just playing as herself, or is she an actual character?
She's Sonya Blade, and they've in turn modeled Sonya Blade to look like her, basically.
So this is another reboot, I assume, because the original Sonya Blade looks nothing like Ronda Rousey.
It's not a reboot. It's like Mortal Kombat 3, basically. They didn't reboot. They just changed all the characters to look not idealized, let's say.
I mean, they've changed character designs before, but usually there are like some consistent through lines. Like Jax is black.
Well, yeah, I'm not talking about that. I'm talking about the female bodies have gotten a lot more diversified, and
I did say they gave Jade like actual clothes, which is something.
Yeah, well, and they they changed Millennia's proportions, and that pissed off a lot of piss boys because because you know the reasons. Like, but that's not a problem in and of itself. Because that being said, it is interesting to watch Mortal Kombat try to be not so much PC, but being sensitive. Like that's not usually Mortal Kombat's forte. I mean, remember,
Mortal Kombat was literally born out of kind of trying to be as offensive to certain sensibilities as possible.
Right. It's not just the gore. Like, I mean, that was the most obvious factor, but Mortal Kombat was never the most racially or culturally sensitive piece of material out there.
Uh-huh.
And I'm like,
those sure are Japanese names and characters written by people who are most definitely not Japanese.
Right, and I'm like, it's a very, God, how do I put this? Theme park interpretation, like Raiden, of Eastern beliefs and all that. I'm like, it's like the theme park treatment of a Hollywoodized version of Enter the Dragon. Way back when. And I'm not saying that this isn't a good direction for Mortal Kombat to move in. It's just, I have to raise an eyebrow when Mortal Kombat's doing this, because it reminds me of a lesser version of what Dead or Alive was doing. Like, when Dead or Alive 6 announced that they were going in a more diverse direction. But it was still fucking Dead or Alive, so they couldn't help themselves. I suspect that some of this, it's like, I mean, clearly they have better body models this time around. Like, you compare Mortal Kombat 11 to like Mortal Kombat Annihilation, and the differences are more than night and day. It's like, the female bodies do not look like the wet dream interpretation of a pinup girl. Like, but anyway, let's see. Also worth noting is Jax's ending. So I guess spoilers ahead, but I'm like, so Jax's ending has been quote unquote causing controversy because he goes back in time and stops slavery. I'm not even joking. That's what he does.
Is this a new one?
Yes, it's a new one.
Yep.
Oh my fucking god.
I'm like, and there are people having a problem with it.
Now, does he have cyborg arms in this one or not? Not that it actually matters, but just so I can visualize this correctly.
I don't know offhand. Like,
oh god.
I'm like,
anyway.
Take me a close second. Detroit Become Human, which is basically press X to end slavery. Oh boy.
It's actually been received fairly positively. Except, the derision comes from because remember, Jax is a black guy.
Yes.
I'm like,
yeah, you can.
Are you guys still there?
The people who are most likely white. I'm like, you can guess why they're pissed off. Like
certain individuals.
Yeah, like they're pissed off because slavery doesn't exist in real life. They are fucking white supremacists. They need to be punched. There, like.
Yeah, they've been trying to reason this out as, but what will this do to time itself? It'll distort it and cause problems.
It's a video game, you fucking idiot.
It's fucking Mortal Kombat. I mean,
this is like one of the tamest
Mortal
things
Kombat
Mortal
has never
Kombat's done.
Mortal Kombat does weird stuff with its story.
Mortal Kombat jumps the shark about as much as Twisted Metal does.
Yeah, Mortal Kombat. Keep in mind, this is the same series that, an evil elder god is trying to take over the world with a fighting game tournament.
Yep.
That's like one step above a children's card game.
Yeah, it's not going to be adhering to fucking reality. Like,
Indeed.
Oh God.
Especially when he controls a bunch of mutants and powerful demons.
Yes.
We got a clan of huge people with 4 arms.
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh. God, Mortal Kombat is a trip. Like, it's got some of the deepest lore out there as far as video games go, but
yeah, they tried to reboot it with 9 and then just said fuck it.
Well, yeah. Well, like in Mortal Kombat 9, like apparently all of the previous Mortal Kombat stuff happened, but that was actually a flash forward, and that was Raiden seeing the future. More like it's Mortal Kombat, people. This is about the best you're gonna get from it.
It would have been better if they wiped the slate clean, honestly.
They basically did, but they didn't. I'm like, I don't know. I'm like, if only makes my brain twisted in knot. I'm like, there's nothing quite that bad in Mortal Kombat. I mean, Mortal Kombat's, not exactly Shakespeare, but, it's not, it's not that fucking convoluted either in comparison to other things.
Well, like the story is always weird, but in the previous games, most of it was from the manuals. Like in the classical era, it wasn't till I think Deception on the PS2 it started getting a more quote-unquote cohesive story.
That's a way of putting it. I mean, calling Mortal Kombat's story cohesive is amusing.
I mean, what was it before whatever they decided to put in the manual?
There?
Yeah.
I'm like, really Mortal Kombat's story was being more built in the outside installments, let's call them. Stuff like the movie, the animated series. Do you know Mortal Kombat had 2 animated things?
Yeah.
But,
yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
One of them was decent. One of them makes you want to cry.
Well,
Indeed.
I wouldn't call either of them decent. Like, Defenders of the Realm was pretty typical cartoon
superhero show.
Yeah, I'm like, it's not bad for, I hesitate to say 90s cartoons, but that kind of cartoon. I mean, Mortal Kombat, the CGI thing, that was just god awful. Like,
yeah.
Yeah, I cannot describe to you how bad the CGI was, even for 1993, whatever. Like, yeah, you're getting early 90s CGI here. Like, and, of course, there was the movie, and this is really where I'd say the story for early Mortal Kombat got fleshed out, because, you kind of needed that.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, the story of Mortal Kombat was there, but it wasn't it was just a text scroll, not even a manual scroll. It's like, but and it's kind of surprising that Mortal Kombat has survived this. Like,
Yes.
one of the few Western fighting game franchises to do so. I think it's really this and Killer Instinct. And Killer Instinct took a break.
Yeah, Killer Instinct has not had that many games that I am aware of.
No, but it did have that Xbox One game.
Mm-hmm.
So, it did.
And that's the one that did the weird things, like where they started having way more weapons and stuff at one point.
I think.
Yeah.
I think so.
Armageddon and Deception had the whole stances thing, where you could have different stances and weapons, and they also had the custom fighters, which, oh god.
Mm-hmm. And honestly, I haven't played a Mortal Kombat game since the 90s.
Yeah, I have the Shaolin Monks, Deception, and Armageddon for PS2, and that's kind of where my entertainment with it died. I have 9.
Yeah,
I was gonna play it, but apparently it doesn't have a windowed mode because I forgot that 9 was a botched port.
Not the only botched port. I didn't hear good things about Mortal Kombat 10 either.
From what I've heard, for 10 to be decent, you need to get the XL pack.
Right.
And I'm not paying $30 for that.
No doubt. Anyway, Anyway, I think that'll about do it for Mortal Kombat here. I mean, we've talked about Mortal Kombat before. We did the whole backstory.
Sorry, I don't have a ton more to input on this, but I was never huge on fighting games, and of the fighting games I was huge on, I erred strongly towards the ones that are sillier rather than the ones that are gory.
Yeah, I guess one real quick thing is Mortal Kombat is part of the reason why the ESRB exists.
Right. We've touched upon that in other topics of discussion.
Yeah, and looking back now, it's kind of laughable how I thought that was, something to try and shield children from.
Well, standards change.
Yeah, well, in hindsight's 2020,
Yeah. Well, it's like you compare Mortal Kombat 2011 to Mortal Kombat 1992, 1993, and the differences are pretty profound, not just in terms of graphical technology, but in terms of violence. Mortal Kombat 2011 has the fucking X-ray shots and shit. And,
And I think it wasn't till 9 or 10 where Strider actually used his gun for a fatality.
Weird.
Well, I think part of it is they didn't want the fatality to be replicatable, It's kind of hard for a 10-year-old to rip out somebody's spine.
True, but they did tone down the fatalities a bit from Mortal Kombat to Mortal Kombat 2.
Yeah.
Ma'am, do you know why your son is in the principal's office? Something about breathing ice on a classmate, and then something about a harpoon?
Anyway.
Yes, I know that's 2 different characters.
Yeah. Anyway, that'll about do it for this installment of Fragments of Silicon. The week ahead. Nothing this slated for this Friday. Game reviews. This week we will be reviewing, or rather, I'll be reviewing the game Treasure Stack, a falling block puzzle game. You don't see too many of those these days. It's kind of the second coming of Wario's Wood. More on that on Sunday. Twilight will be handling our review of Nova Drift.
Mm-hmm.
And our the game we all got a copy of is Heaven's Ball. I would say this is a contender for Game of the Year. Right.
Well, that's something to look forward to.
Yes, it is. I would also say you might want to schedule a block of time around it because, it's lengthy. And that'll about do it for this installment of Fragments of Silicon. Be sure to tune in for the post show, and until then, I shall wish you good gaming.